Bismillahi wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi man wala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. This is your brother Ibn Muhammad al-Makki recording for Islam Council. I hope your brothers and sisters are doing well and keeping safe in the quarantine and practicing the sunnah of social distancing and isolation. Right, whilst you're doing this, let's talk about quantum mechanics. Now, I was brought to this particular subject because I was doing some research related to Islam, and I came across the topic of Schrodinger's cat. Now, I don't know if you brothers and sisters know much about Schrodinger's cat, but it is a thought experiment that was designed by Erwin Schrodinger. I will bring a picture out for you guys so you can take a look at this experiment. So what the experiment says, before I go into the benefits that I was hoping to derive and the history and the way I've discovered it. Now, just so you guys know, a Schrodinger's cat is an experiment. It's a thought experiment. It's not a real experiment. It's just something that they say, well, what if? So they say, what if we take a box, inside the box, we put a cat, right? Why a cat? I don't know. Maybe because they hate cats more than they love dogs. I don't know. But they put a cat. Then they put a poisonous gas in a bottle like this one here, as you can see, this bottle here. And then you put next to the bottle, you put a hammer like this one here, right? And then next to the hammer, you put a lever, right? The lever has a sensor for radioactive radiation. And then on this side here, in this little box, you put a radioactive substance. And then you close the box. What the way the thought experiment is set up is that if the radioactive substance becomes active and it decays, right, which is, by the way, a 50-50 chance. So it could decay, it could not decay. If it decays, then it would release radiation. The radiation would be sensed by the lever, and then the lever would dropping the hammer, releasing the gas, killing the cat. If the radioactive substance does not decay, however, then there is no radiation. The sensor will not be activated, the lever will not drop, the hammer will not fall, the gas will not be released, and the cat will live. Now, what they say is that if you keep the box closed and you don't open the box for, I don't know, the equivalent of 1 or 2 half-lives, or for long enough, then is the cat alive or dead? Right? And the obvious answer for most of us is, well, we don't know. Until you open the box, you don't know if the cat is alive or dead, because you don't know because there's a 50-50% chance, you don't know if the radioactive substance has decayed, has caused the chain reaction that killed the cat, or it hasn't decayed and has not caused the chain reaction that killed the cat. So you don't know. But what quantum physicists have been saying, and this is how I originally understood Schrodinger's cat, and that was quantum mechanics says that the cat is both alive and dead at the same time. Which means that, and I know it makes no sense, but quantum mechanics says that it is both alive and dead at the same time. That's just the theory. Now, I had this understanding of Schrodinger's cat for many years, actually, and I based this understanding on after reading some scientific articles, sort of scientific magazines and journals where they talked about Schrodinger's cat, etc., and they referred to it in this fashion. Little did I know that when I started to explore the history of Schrodinger's cat, I started to explore the works of Erwin Schrodinger himself. Erwin Schrodinger was a Nobel Prize-winning physicist. He made a very significant contribution to quantum mechanics, and he also wrote a very interesting book called What is Life, which presents a physicist's perspective on biology and on life itself. And inshallah ta'ala, if Allah wills, I will bring out some benefits from that book, which I have read. And there is something that we all need to learn from it, inshallah ta'ala. But before that, as in beyond that, I learned that Erwin Schrodinger did not actually agree with the theory of quantum mechanics, initially at least. Or some of the, not the whole theory of quantum mechanics, but some of the consequences, some of the aspects of quantum mechanics. In fact, they say, if you look into history, you realize that Schrodinger's idea of putting this experiment up was actually a way of demonstrating how silly quantum mechanics actually is, because what he was trying to say, what he was trying to do was put up a refutation of quantum mechanics, because what he was trying to say is to say that, well, if you close the box, then what you guys are saying about quantum mechanics is that the radioactive material is both decayed and not decayed together, a phenomenon known as quantum superimposition, and therefore the cat is both alive and not alive at the same time, which is absurd. And because it is absurd, quantum mechanics cannot. This idea of superimposition cannot be possible, or is not possible. And Schrodinger wasn't alone in this. When quantum mechanics was young, some of the conclusions were contested by the likes of Albert Einstein himself. He said he made some refutations of quantum mechanics himself. He did not really like the idea initially. Now it is a prominent theory, a prevalent theory, but actually at the time when it began, it had a lot of opposition. Now, why am I boring you guys, and sort of reading these complicated physics topics? The answer is very simple. I'm doing this not because, well, partly because I'm a bit of a physics geek, but the real reason I'm doing this is because I wanted to bring forth a point. And the point is actually 2 points. One, that sometimes in literature, what the du'at say is not the same as what the scholars say. So what the scientists say is not the same as what the science popularizers say. So here in this case, Erwin Schrodinger created an experiment called Schrodinger's cat to demonstrate how ridiculous quantum mechanics is. But now, modern science popularizers, some of them, are using Erwin Schrodinger's example to demonstrate quantum mechanics. And what they often don't do is they don't tell us that Schrodinger actually did not believe in the stuff in this quantum mechanics much in the same way as we believe in it now. So that is an important part to realize. And when I extrapolate that into our Islamic traditions, we realize that sometimes what you hear in YouTube, what you hear on Facebook, what you hear even from du'at and good brothers and sisters who are out there giving the dawah, is not the same as what the scholars intended. And that's the first sort of parallel I wanted to draw between scientific discovery and Islamic sciences. The second thing that I wanted to point out is that when you think about it, Erwin Schrodinger was actually refuting quantum mechanics. He was doing a rad. He was a classic refutation in this perspective. He was actually demonstrating how ridiculous the idea could be. And that should tell us that the idea of contest and debate and disagreement and not really knowing the truth is actually pretty dominant and pretty significant in scientific circles. Scientists argue and disagree all the time. It's just that we don't see their debates and disagreements because it happens in scientific journals. Also, we don't understand their debates and disagreements. If somebody writes a letter, actually it's a refutation for someone else, but we don't realize it because we don't understand what the scientific article is writing, and we don't understand that it's actually refuting someone else. But the other scientist who's being refuted, he knows that he's being refuted, and then they have these little wars that are going on in their journals, which the people are completely oblivious of. And so when we go to get information in science, we are given information from science popularizers who look at one scientist, look at another scientist, make their mind up, to the best of their ability. Of course, I'm not saying they're lying, but to the best of their ability, and come up with some kind of coherent picture, which is subject to change. Now, how different is this from the concept of reputation in Islam, right? What happens in our religion is that there is a healthy, there is a similar parallel to Islam. The only difference is that when scientists disagree, they go back to the natural world, they go back to the topic at hand, and they go back and study it. But when we disagree, when scholars disagree, they go back to the Kitab and the Sunnah, right? And similarly, when we have a question to ask about science, it is imperative that we explore and discover the scientific subject in as much detail as possible, or ask somebody else about it so we can have better understanding, i.e. follow the best evidence. And similarly, on the same note, when we find a challenge in Islamic rulings or Islamic sciences, so if one scholar says do this and one scholar says do that, so one scholar says this is halal and the other says no, this is makruh or something like that, then it is up to us to follow the best available evidence or to ask somebody who may have more knowledge than us. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلُ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of knowledge, ask the people of understanding, if you do not know about something, so that you may be able to make an informed choice based on the best available evidence. And what I wanted to do, brothers and sisters, through this presentation is to bring forth the similarities between scientific development and Islamic sciences, or or development in Islamic sciences as well. There is so much more I could say about this, and I'm going to stop myself from saying more. But I just want you to think and reflect from this example. If I have left anything unsaid or anything that's not clear enough, please feel free to put this down in comments. If I made a mistake, feel free to correct me in the comments, inshallah ta'ala. And with this, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance for both you and me, who are trying to, for Muslims who are trying to understand Islam, and also for those who are trying to understand the material world, the world that's out of it, and we're trying to find a happy fusion where we do not compromise on our Islamic principles, but equally we don't go out of touch with reality. I propose to you, brothers and sisters, that this compromise exists. In fact, this compromise is the only way forward. And the only way to achieve this compromise is to hold on to the rope of the Sunnah and not be divided when holding on to the rope of the Sunnah. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا, says, be united, hold on to the rope of Allah, all of you together, be united on the Sunnah, strongly upon the Sunnah, and do not disagree, or do not do not divide into sects. And this is the call, this is the ultimate message, is that if we return to the Sunnah, then all our answers would become easy. Our understanding of the deen and the dunya would become much better. And having said this, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that we are all guided to become better Muslims, stronger upon the Quran and the Sunnah, according to the way that the Sahaba and the Salaf understood it. Wa barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.